For Sunday, February 17th, you found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, Governor Kemp moves on health care. The Attorney General sends a message to the city of Atlanta, and Amazon punts on New York. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us on this Sunday. As promised during the campaign, Governor Brian Kemp was making some major moves this week on health care. And we have our Lori Geary this morning to lead us off.
Dick, this week, Governor Brian Kemp released details of his plan to help hundreds of thousands of uninsured Georgians, many of them in rural Georgia with limited access to health care. His proposals call for a partial expansion of Medicaid, but Democrats say they want more details and remain skeptical.
We're going to focus this on Georgia. This is going to be our health care program, putting our hard-working Georgians first.
It's a bold step for Republican Governor Brian Kemp, who unveiled a plan this week to help improve the state's health care crisis. The proposed plan is called the Patients First Act. It aims to increase access to health care for low-income Georgians and lower private health care costs. On the campaign trail, Governor Kemp said he was against a full expansion of Medicaid under Obamacare. Instead, his office will ask for federal waivers so that Georgia lawmakers can tailor the plan.
I believe that going through this process, we're going to find out what are the best ways for us to move forward in a way that's focused on Georgia.
The plan could affect anywhere from 300,000 to 600,000 uninsured Georgians, those who are too poor to qualify for Obamacare subsidies, but make just enough to not qualify for Medicaid. And Democrats who are pushing for full Medicaid expansion say they have concerns that this gives too much power to the governor's office on such a critical issue.
What's the best course to get the most Georgians covered, get the most for our money, and bring the best economic development to our state? And the governor has not laid out what his intentions are or where he plans to go with this.
Georgia is one of 14 states that did not fully expand Medicaid under Obamacare. Most of them, of course, are Republican-led.
Thank you, Lori. And we expected this. Brian Kemp had mentioned it during the campaign. I think, frankly, under pressure from Stacey Abrams. I think that's what caused that switch. But also, I think the pocketbook. And by the way, Alexis couldn't be with us today. Here's Kathy Woolard sitting in with us. Glad to have you, Kathy. Phil, is this a flip-flop by the Republicans, or is it just cold calculus?
No, as we're talking about it, some Republican states are looking at waivers from the command and control Obamacare and the expensive Obamacare. Let's remember that former Governor Nathan Deal opposed a just willy-nilly expansion of the program because of the cost, and Brian Kemp is very much aware of that too. So these federal waivers are going to reach out and ensure a lot of people that aren't insured that they're falling through the cracks, but it's going to create more competition and lower insurance rates.
Kathy, isn't the divide between urban and rural? It seems to me that in the metro area, between healthy job growth and a variety of programs for the poor and the working poor, people seem to have better coverage. It is in rural Georgia where there's not only little coverage, but fewer hospitals and way fewer doctors.
I don't see it that way. I think that everybody around the country struggles to get good health care for their families, and here in the metro area as well as in rural Georgia, you know, people are looking for ways to get health care, to access health care that's affordable. The problem we have in the rural part of the state is the availability of care. You know, we've had hospitals that have been shutting down, specialists are few and far between, and so that complicates the situation for the average person in the rural part of the state.
Lori, I thought I heard the Democrats saying we're okay with this. They seem to be. I think Steve Henson said something like, "We'll keep an open mind."
They'll keep an open mind, but they want to see, you know, they'll say the devil's in the details. But this is something that Governor Kemp has to do. He has to address the health care crisis in Georgia. And so if you want to call it a flip-flop or whatever, however you want to characterize it, it is some type of expansion of Medicaid under Obamacare, whether it's a waiver, but this is something he has to do for rural Georgia and the gap, you know, as I mentioned, the folks who are, you know, too poor to qualify for the Obamacare subsidies, but yet don't make enough, or make too much to qualify for Medicaid. And it's hundreds of thousands of Georgians.
But it advocates choice. I think that's why the Republicans really like this in terms of insurance and lowering costs.
You know, there's an irony here that I can't escape. We talk about this urban-rural divide for one thing, but just this past week, Northside Hospital, the system announced that it got approval for its merger with the Gwinnett Health System. That leaves Metro Atlanta basically with 4, maybe 5 giant healthcare systems. So while rural Georgia lags, Metro Atlanta turns into is creating these behemoths. Well, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just noting it for the record.
It also goes, and I know we've discussed this before, and we'll do it again. It also goes to the current legislative controversy over CON's certificate of need, where, to your point, Kathy, we do need more healthcare facilities, especially in the rural parts of the state. And the argument is that CON reform will allow some of these healthcare facilities to expand or build outside of Metro Atlanta or other cities.
And I think we'll see these two efforts, the healthcare expansion and this, kind of travel together, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of horse trading behind that. I did want to note, though, that if you'll recall, before the governor, the election, midterm for Governor Deal's election against Jason Carter, the Republican-controlled House and Senate took the power of the governorship away from making these decisions, and now Governor Kemp is putting it back. So I just wanted to note that.
Interesting reminder. There's rumblings of the state capitol that, in fact, a major Sunday story in the AJC, Lori, that David Ralston, as being the Speaker of the Georgia House, has been playing fast and loose with his clients. This doesn't seem to me like something brand new. It seems to go back quite a ways.
This story has been covered for years. It has not been addressed. And, you know, we are not talking about minor offenses or misdemeanors. We're talking about domestic violence charges and...
Let's be careful. Not against David Ralston.
Right. No. I mean, the clients that he takes on,
yes.
There are delays in the court system for years because he's claiming, rightfully so and legally, that his legislative affairs prevent him from being in the courtroom. But these victims in some of these cases, some child molestation cases, they want their day in court and they can't get it because of this legality. Now, it is legal, but I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do.
Other speakers have done this too. Glenn Richardson before him, and then Tom Murphy before him. I would say this: if the case is like 8 years,
12 years in some cases.
Yeah, I think another lawyer ought to be taking the case.
I'm sure there are other lawyers in Blue Ridge.
But I think this is an old story that the AJC loves to recycle to jab at Republicans.
All right, we got to get out. When we come back, we'll talk about some of those bills in the General Assembly. The pace is picking up a little bit, and we hope you'll stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
And before we turn to some major news this week in the metro area, let's just quickly recap some of the things that happened at the state capitol. The governor's already signed one bill. That's on school bus safety. I don't think there are any opponents to that. That was unanimous. I think, well, maybe there's one fellow voted no.
Almost.
And a new bill now for the distribution, cultivation of medical marijuana. Is that something that'll happen this year, Lori?
I think so. I mean, I think, you know, the tide's definitely turned on this issue, and it's long overdue. These patients, there's more than 8,000 now on the registry for medical marijuana, are having to cross state lines to go get their medicine and bring it back. And, you know, they're fearful
Which, by the way, is illegal.
Right, it's illegal to cross federal lines, or state lines, and it's a federal law. So I think this is long overdue, and I think that there's a bipartisan effort on this. So I think they could get the cultivation this year.
And it is tightly controlled, and we're not talking about full legalization for recreational use.
And you have to have a license, and it's through dispensaries that are controlled by the state, so it is tightly regulated.
8,100 Georgians have prescriptions to smoke. I mean, not smoke, use the oil.
The oil.
Not smoke, use the oil. Let me be very clear on that.
Important distinction.
And Phil, at the end of the week, an Augusta legislator dropped a bill that seems to indicate that means the administration supports the more expensive new voting system.
That's right.
Which is marking on a touchscreen and going to paper.
That's right. State Representative Barry Fleming dropped that with the support of the Republican leadership. And bear in mind, the Secretary of State is not the one recommending. It's now the legislature that's recommending based on committee recommendations. And what they want to do is you're right, they want to have a touchscreen ballot with a paper printer right next to it, and then you're casting your ballot, and then you're getting that paper receipt, which can be audited. And so they say that that is the best one. They've rejected calls for just having the old paper ballot, remember the old punch cards, or something you would do with your hand to punch on it. And it was even Democrat Kathy Cox, our former Secretary of State, who said she did not like those old ballots that were paper that you would actually mark on, because the spoilage rate was so high and it actually hurt minority communities. So I think the bill, it's House Bill 316, is a good thing that has been introduced.
Kathy Woolard, there are always going to be conspiracy theorists, though, who think that somehow when you're using that computer, that when you push Kathy Woolard for mayor, that computer is going to change that to who? Keisha Lance Bottoms for mayor? I don't know.
I think that's what happened. No, you know, I do think that there's no system that's fail-safe, and that these machines still can be tampered with at the beginning or at the end. But you know, we do need to take a step forward. We need to make sure that there are receipts at the end of it that can be audited, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, turning to the City of Atlanta, City Hall, and the state capitol, Attorney General Chris Carr this week handed down criminal charges against Jenna Garland, the former press secretary, to Kasim Reed. I think all of us as journalists and as transparent government figures applaud this move. They're only misdemeanors. It's not City Hall corruption. It's really, Phil, the Attorney General sending a message to every government in the state of Georgia: you got to comply with the law.
He is, but I don't understand, and maybe more will be coming. There are far more egregious examples of cover-ups and delay of public information that needs to be released. And I think Jenna Garland complied within 2 weeks. I think former City Attorney Jeremy Berry is a far more egregious case. I think that the Communications Director, Ann Torres, was far more egregious, so maybe we'll see more. I will say this about the Garland case, and I've been a press secretary myself. I can't imagine a press secretary just willy-nilly doing this on their own. I think this young woman was given direction, in this case by the law department.
Well, she might have been given direction, but I mean, I had to deal with her when I covered the Reed administration, and it was awful. Even if you were granted an interview with a public official, she would sit in on the interviews and she would stop you and say, this isn't a story. I mean, somewhere along the lines, I think the public information officer somehow turned into a spin master. And I think they have to remember that this is a public information officer. You are to give information to the public, meaning the media.
It's happening everywhere. It's happening in DeKalb, at the DeKalb schools, for example.
I want, hopefully, this is a loud message to public officials that they've got to be more transparent.
I don't know. I think this is so narrowly tailored. I think it really just says if you get an FOI request, you got to comply with the law in the time.
Well, you'd be surprised how hard that is in some cases.
Right. And the Augusta Chronicle has been waiting a month for documents that they have requested. That's how bad it has gotten. And of course, under law, you should get it in 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah, now here's the big one in the Reed administration, if you think about it, and Jenna Garland's wrapped up in this, I think, which is that one subpoena from the U.S. Attorney, which asked for all the records on expenses and travel and all that stuff. That subpoena was, they didn't release it, you know, in a timely fashion. It was covered up for a year. That is a serious violation. Now, to me, that even rises above a misdemeanor. I don't know if the law says that.
Remember former City Attorney Jeremy Berry even submitted fake invoices after dragging it out. I mean, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, well, anyway, Chris Carr, I think, did the right thing. And but we still wait the bigger stuff. You know, there's just so much out there. This is, after all, we remind, just misdemeanors. DeKalb schools, I mentioned that. They're playing the same games. I'm not allowed to talk to the chief operating officer of the school system. I haven't had time to contest it, but it's pretty silly, isn't it? You kidding? I've known the guy for years. I can't talk to him. Come on. But he's done a heck of a job. They found out that when they tried to apply their new pay schedules, that they missed it by $10 million. You know, that's
That's a lot.
That's a pretty good-sized error.
But they were giving them penny raises, I understand, rather
Yes.
than
Was
a
that
few
right?
$100s, right?
That's good.
No wonder he doesn't want to talk to me.
I can see why they don't want to talk to you. It's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, it ought to be. All right, when we come back, let's take a look at really the wonderful irony of Amazon. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
We mentioned very quickly last week that Stefan Ritter, who was the leader of the Georgia Ethics Commission, had been suspended. Now we know that he's been, I don't know, I guess severed, retirement.
He's gone.
He's gone.
He resigned.
He's gone. He's getting a severance, which indicates that he was fired. I don't know if they couched it as, I can't remember if it was couched as a retirement or not. We see there,
By the way, I might add that one of the problems that the Ethics Committee found was that he was slow walking investigations, ethics investigations, which is what the board is supposed to be.
including some against Stacey Abrams.
Yes.
I think that's the hidden story in this that I was going to lead to.
Well, they say he's a partisan Democrat and he was looking out for his Democrat friends.
They say that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to be sure. And of course, the allegation is that he had porn on his computer. That's always an easy out. Amazon, after all that, it's almost like the Super Bowl. It's finally over. So Amazon goes to Virginia and New York and now says, no, we're not going to New York, Kathy. We don't like it. Those politicians don't want us. They don't want 25,000 jobs.
Well, I think this is, kind of the shape of things to come. People are looking very closely at these corporate giveaways. We saw the fight for the Gulch deal here in Atlanta. We had a lot of ambivalence about Amazon coming here and what the size of the deal was going to be. I think that conversation, but for the Amazon piece, which it has attracted people's attention for so long, I think we're going to see more of this leading up to future elections. People are going to want to see more about what's in the deal and how does it benefit a local community.
28-year-old.
Yeah, you got a 29-year-old socialist bartender that wants to create problems for this Amazon company, like you say, 25,000 jobs. And of course, the dirty secret, Kathy, you didn't mention, is that the socialists and the people opposed to it wanted unionization. And the Amazon said, no, if you want to join a union, that's fine, but we're not going to have forced unionization. Now, I do believe in scrutiny, and I do believe we should look out for, by the way, corporate capitalism is not the same as free enterprise, and you do have to scrutinize some of these tax breaks. I get it, but now I don't blame Amazon for looking around, and other parts of the country now will be looking at them.
Any benefit to Georgia and Atlanta, Lori?
Possibly, right? I mean, they could be expanding some of their operations here and Nashville and also in Virginia. But, it just proves that $3 billion in tax breaks, not enough. You have to be nice, too, or else Amazon pulls out. So, we probably have some great Southern hospitality here, which I'm sure the Department of Economic Development is all about.
Well, we could also say that maybe Jeff Bezos has been distracted by his marital issues and his own porn on his own phone and so forth.
Well,
right?
I think this is just and I think a lot of Democrats are horrified at how radical this was in terms of just hatred against what they call corporate exploitation. Because there's a lot of folks over in that Long Island area, young people. The average job would have been $150,000. That's incredible to me, and they lost it.
Yeah, but the average job that was $150,000 was probably not going to be a job that somebody who lives there is going to get.
Oh no, I disagree, Kathy. That not on Long Island. Those are people that really were ready for it.
Yeah, Long Island City is a distressed area. I've been there. It's a terrible part of New York, and I thought that was kind of a cool idea.
Well, and a lot of millennials are moving there across the river.
But
from the
I
city.
thought this would really make it a hot place if Amazon was there. It'd be like the resurrection of some of the cities on the Jersey side of New York. And like if Amazon had come to the Gulch, for example, it would have been an altogether good thing for downtown. Let's change the subject to Washington. Senator Isaacson and Senator Perdue are very upset, Phil, that disaster funds for Georgia are not in that compromise spending deal.
Well, we ought to be upset, and I don't like the whole bill anyway. It was just a small group of Republican and Democrat negotiators horse trading. This should have been done before, and it should have been done in December. It's an outrage for Georgia and other areas. The Democrats wanted aid to Puerto Rico, and it went back and forth, and Puerto Rico got the aid and we didn't. But I think the state legislature is going to have to step up again. You know, our General Assembly did do that in the special session.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to do more now because of what happened.
They're still pushing for it, though, and it's $3 billion worth of aid for the South Georgia farmers, and that's not something that's going to go away. I mean, those problems will be for years to come.
Well, yeah, because the crops are wiped out and the timber isn't coming back quickly. There were some good things, though, on that in Congress. The the Senate anyway, managed to pass a Lands Act, which hadn't really received much coverage, and I thought it was interesting that Georgia gets expanded state national parks and monuments. Kennesaw is to be expanded. Okmulgee National Monument near Macon gets national monument status, I believe, and Fort Frederica gets expanded. I think somebody was doing a good job in that sense, bringing the pork home to Georgia.
I know Buddy Carter, the congressman from the Savannah coastal area, was instrumental in some of this, but I think it was a bipartisan effort on the part of the whole Georgia congressional delegation.
And of course, we're not going to have a shutdown, right?
We are not.
Okay, so when we come back, we'll maybe make something like that, winners and losers. Stay with us.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we'll begin that process with you, Lori, because I saw you were shilling the public for ideas.
And I
shamelessly shilling.
I get good ideas from our Facebook followers. So the winners, this one is kind of funny. This is a longtime viewer. He claims that the Georgia Gang is his favorite show. So a shout out to Chris McKierney, because he was loading up bottled water and dog food for an elderly citizen in a parking lot. But again, it's his favorite show. So thank you for watching. My other winner is Chris Carr for the criminal indictments on Jenna Garland. Misdemeanors, I know, and Jenna Garland is my loser for the week.
Phil?
Well, I want to make my winner a prominent Atlanta attorney, Lynn Wood. He's an expert in libel law, and he is going after hammer and tong the mainstream media outlets disgraced journalism by slandering and smearing the young man and all of those young Catholic students in D.C. who were waiting their bus, and some radical American Indian activist came up banging his drum. We all saw that video, but what happened was these journalists didn't see the whole video, which would have shown those boys were innocent. There's been an investigation. There have been apologies, but I hope attorney Lynn Wood gouges some of these, the New York Times and CNN, for a lot of money.
I won't agree with you on Lynn Wood, but I will agree with you on the Covington Catholic kids. I think they were well behaved and so forth. Kathy Woolard, what do you have?
Well, I was going to say that the losers this week really were the Georgia farmers. I mean, they've got a lot of work to do and things to plan, and they just got left out in the cold, and hopefully that'll get changed. Winner this week, Clyde Higgs, is the new CEO of the Atlanta Beltline. I'm excited for him and look forward to seeing him put transit on that line as quickly as possible.
That's right. You are Madam Beltline. I always got to be reminded of that. We've got a little time left, so I think I'll get to talk today. How about this? My winner and a loser is Wright's Gourmet. It's a sandwich shop in Dunwoody. Been there 35 years. Best sandwiches in town, and they shut down without warning this past week. I don't know where I will go to get my favorite sandwich there, the Bachelor Brunch. Trust me, it's a good one. And then you want to feel old. Emmett Thomas is retired from the National Football League. He has been a player and coach there for 51 years. And he was a player with the Kansas City Chiefs when I was a young cub reporter out there covering the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, he closed his career here with the Atlanta Falcons. And then finally, Liz Cheney. She's the newest person in the Republican leadership in the Congress, and she's funny. She's got this messaging down. So when Cory Booker suggested that we should all stop eating meat, you all saw that. The Democrats said they're serious. We don't want $150,000 jobs. We want you to stop eating meat. We want to stop cow, I'm not even going to say it, explosions.
No more airplanes under the green
Right, no more
agenda.
airplanes. And yeah, exactly. And no more cars. 10 years, cars.
That's crazy.
Fun. Anyway, Liz Cheney did a little tweet to Cory Booker, and she said, "I stand with PETA, people eating tasty animals." Best tweet of the week, I thought. And we'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.